Good morning, everybody. It's Peter here from AJS, and once again we're bringing you a online demonstration from a jeweller's workshop somewhere around Australia. And this week we're coming to you from sunny Brisbane, and it's my delight to introduce to you the even more sunny Carnie Burrows. Welcome, Carnie.
Hey, how everyone? Not normally that sunny, it's morning. I'm normally not even awake at this hour.
Oh, dear. Yes,
yeah, one is.
Carnie, welcome and thank you for participating in today's event. And we're doing absolute basics of free CAD software. So just explain, what are we going to get up to today?
Okay, so CAD is pretty much computer-aided design, and that's really becoming the way of the future. It's invaluable to jewelers. A lot of jewelers will use things like Rhino and Matrix, which pretty much allow you to design pieces of jewelry, put all the settings in, where you're going to put the stones, all that sort of stuff. And they're great. The problem is that they're also like thousands of dollars, or the subscriptions are thousands of dollars a year. And for the rest of us, there's just not that much money in the kitty. When I started having trouble with my vision, and as a lot of you may know that I used to do a lot of the wax carving demonstrations at AJS, when my vision started to deteriorate, I stopped being able to see quite so well that fine detail. So I turned to the dark side and went, you know what, maybe I should just do this in virtual space. So I learned a whole bunch of different little CAD packages and learned my way around them. The good thing is that there are a lot of really good ones out there which are free, or at least extremely reasonable. It's just a matter of just finding them. You can go online and look up things like free CAD packages, and they'll all pop up. So it's just a matter of picking the ones you like. I'm going to show you a few of the ones which I have used, or which might be good for you to have a good start on if you've never done CAD before. As I said, this is an absolute beginner. If you've never thought of using computers to design or make your jewelry, this is what we're going to be looking at. If you already know how to use Rhino and things like that, go away. You already know what you're doing. This is just for people who have no idea and just go, oh, this could be good. The big advantages of using computers to develop these items is that you can print them out. You can print out prototypes. You can 3D print them. You can send them to a foundry who will print them out and then cast them for you as if just the same way as they would if you actually had a wax sculpture. You can really emphasize the geometry in your design, and even more interesting, you can actually send your designs to be printed like over if you've got a client in the United States, you can get it printed in the United States and sent to them and cut down on the travel time or the postage, which is pretty useful these days when you've got a client who says, I want this done in 4 weeks. And you go, yeah, it's going to take 4 weeks just to get there, and I haven't even started making it. So there's a lot of advantages in using CAD. And so we're just going to start off on using a fairly simple program, which is Tinkercad, which a lot of you have probably already, well, you probably have heard of it, or your kids might be using it, or your grandkids. So it may not be completely unfamiliar.
Okay, so you're going to share your screen now?
I am. So we're going to have a little look at Tinkercad. Now, when it comes up, there's our little dashboard type of thing there. I'll just move our little blocky thing. There we go. All you've got to do, it wants you to sign in, which is all well and good. So your little details will come up in various places. All you've got to do is go create a new design. So let's click on that. And what you'll get is something like this. So here's our work plane. A lot of people tend to want to design from looking at the top. This allows us, this little block over here, allows us to move our work desk. So if we just think of this as like your jeweler's bench, so there's our top, just like that. Workspace is here, home. This allows us to frame our design. And over here are all the different shapes that we can actually use. We can also put up a ruler if we want to make sure that we're keeping everything square. So we've got scribbles, we've got spheres. Good ones are the torus, the ring. Okay, so the ring is pretty useful if you want to just make a basic ring. There it is, just draw it out and it's ready to go. What we're probably going to do is just show you how to do something which might take a little bit longer that you would be doing on the bench. So we're just going to make like a basic key ring, and then I'm going to show you how to export it and things like that. In here, we've also got different things. So apart from just our basic shapes, we've also got text and numbers. So all these little blocks which you can go in there, you can just use those as it is. So if you just wanted to make something really simple, so let's put a K down. There's my K. Like so. That tells me how big it is. It's measuring in mils. So we can go in and change any of these. So we can just make that say a 20. So make it 2 centimeters, and might leave that one as it is. So we can click over like that. If we want to see how thick it is, we just take our little navigation thing here and we tilt it just as if we're looking at it on the bench. And there it is. That's just the plain old, just a block. Now, if we wanted to make a solid block like that, it could be a little bit fiddly, or we'd have to use really thick material. If we want to just now add something along the lines of, let's say we want to put on like a little jump ring or something onto the top, we can just drag a torus over. Now that torus is fairly, well, largish, so we can drop that thickness in through there. And we can always enlarge along those lines. We can muck around with it a little bit. And if we actually look at it this way and then turn it around, we can also see it's going to allow us to rotate it. At least it will once I actually get the orientation right. So we can just move that around once it lets me. There we go. It's being grumpy today. It could just be my mouse, which is being revolting. Rule to self, have a mouse which you actually like. There's this one's being very, very bolshy. There we go. And we can make that at 90 degrees. Now,
you can do it.
Yay, there we go. And we can also swing that one around in through there. Go back to looking at our top. There's our top. And let's say I want to move that through 90. It's going to let me do that. And this might not allow us to do that. It's been very bolshy today, and a lot of that's because they were upgrading the system this morning. So we go, there we go, yay! So usually when they're upgrading systems, there's usually a reason for that. Now we've got that hanging on to there. We can then just go and look at it from the side and go, oh, that's not quite in the right space. So how about we lift that up? And that allows us just to lift that up into there. If we think that jump ring still looks a little bit big, we can change its dimensions. We can bring that down a little bit. And once again, we can just change the orientation. So just look at that little arrow there. And now we've got our little guy like that. So we can
you zoom in on that too, Carnie?
I can. There we go.
Beauty.
So it's like that. We go, oh, the jump ring seems a little bit wide there. Let's just close that up. So we've got a great big chunky key ring with our great big ring that we can thread things through. In order to make this fairly useful, you'll notice that it's made the two components in different colours. This is so you can identify what you've actually got on the screen. So in this case, we just select both of them, hold down Shift, give them both, or you can just do something like that, and it will come up with this. This allows you to group them and join them up. So now it's going to see it just as one item, and you'll see how they both flick into the same colour. So we can have a little bit of a look at that all the way through and go, oh yeah, that's not too bad. Keep in mind, this is just a 5-minute job just to show you how the monster works. Once we've actually got our keyring or whatever it is that we're designing, as I said, this allows you to do all sorts of stuff. All you've got to do is just export it. Now, because this is actually being done online, we're actually using somebody else's processing space. So if we actually want to do something with it, we need to actually import it to ourselves. So we need to bring it in. When you actually want to print things off using a 3D printer, these are the main sort of files that you can use. So an OBJ, an STL, and one of these, which is like a GLTF or GLB, that's usually a proprietary one. If you're going to do a lot of this sort of stuff, usually an STL is the safest way to go. All the foundries, all the printing places, your own personal printer. I have a Hunter Flashforge Hunter, and STL is read by just about everything. In fact, everything. It's pretty much the standard. So we're going to export that as an STL. And you'll notice that it's given it some interesting names. That's the thing about Tinkercad. They randomly generate these project names for you, just to make sure that nobody has the same file names. Once we've actually got this, a lot of your computers will actually, like a lot of the present Microsoft ones, will have a little pop-up. Once it's in this, once we've actually got it downloaded to our machine, then it's just a matter of just exporting it. So we save it as an STL onto our own machines. Now, let's have a little...
Just before we go any further, Carnie, I've just got a comment and a question from France.
Yeah.
What is the recommended progression for design? Is pendant simplistic than rings? So is pendant more simplistic than rings? Are there any recommended tutorials to follow? So what design should he start with? That's what he's saying.
Yeah, pendants are the easiest thing to start with, simply because you can make them as a nice flat design, even just like this K here. You can make something very straightforward. You could drag like a little heart type of thing in. Usually you've also got the opportunity to use your own scribbles, which we will look at in some of the other software. This one isn't quite so good for just generating your own designs. You can import a lot of them. If we want to do something like a little heart pendant just like that, and then stick a jump ring on it, or what we can also do is we can also stick a hole in it, and that's ready to go. So I'd always start with something that's a flat design like a pendant. Rings in this particular package can be a little bit more problematic to get things aligned. So definitely start with something flat like a pendant. And
then he asked about tutorials. So how did you learn, Carnie? Was it just trial and error, or did you see
trial and error? But most of these applications will also have a website which will allow you to access how to use this. So I seem to recall, let's see if I can find it. Sometimes they actually hide it over here. Circuits might be in there. Now, right, lessons. So there's often lessons there, and there's also usually a learn button. So are we still looking at the same screen?
We're on the Tinkercad Autodesk. We've got the red cube in front of us.
Yep, that's it. So this is where you can actually learn how to use Tinkercad. So almost all of these, all the ones I'll be showing you, have a how to learn this program thing attached to it. So all of these, and some of them will even attach themselves to things like Shapeways, who will print your design for you. So all of these are just single lessons, and they'll show you how to use everything. Once you started using a few of them, though, they all pretty much run in a very similar way. So the more of them that you learn, the easier they all become. The orientation is usually the hardest bit. So when you actually come into your designs, you go tinker this. So it allows you to, it saves it in space for you. So the hardest thing is learning to orientate all these sorts of things. So the good thing is with any of the Autodesk ones is you've got these little front, top, left, right, and provided that you use these, it's pretty hard to go wrong. Some of the others, like with the more organic ones like Blender and that, some of them can be a little hard to navigate. When in doubt, you can always go to a home view and it will always recenter things. So if you go, I have no idea where I am, I'm always, I have no idea what I'm looking at. You can always just go, go back to home and it'll always switch you back over to here. You can also frame things so it'll bring it closer for you. This is your zoom. This is in case you're not using your mouse roller. It also has the option of an orthographic view, so like that, and then there's perspective view.
Yeah, just a quick response to Dana Lee. She can't watch the finish of this, but she'd like to see it later. So just to let you know, Dana Lee, yes, you'll be able to watch this on Facebook later, or it'll also be on the AJS website.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, Carnie, what about adding a texture to that K? How would you do that?
Adding texture, not so easy with this package. So this is really a bog standard sort of a package. What you can also do though is once you actually have these printed in metal is then you can do whatever you would normally do to them. So you can add texture all over them. And that's not much of a problem at all. Once you actually get to things like Fusion 360, which is the next one I'm going to be showing you, and I will just show you the screen for that. So this is also a lot of these are Autodesk functions, and simply because if you're a hobbyist, you can use these packages for free. If you're an educator, you also can use them for free, and that's pretty good value for money as far as I'm concerned. If you don't like any of these, as I said, you can go on the internet and just type in something along the lines of free 3D design packages, and up they'll come. And there's a stack of them out there. So I'm just going to show you the ones that I use most commonly. Now, when you get into things like making rings, Fusion 360 is probably a little easier to work with. You'll see we've got this orientation block up on the top, which seems it's pretty much a feature of a lot of the Autodesk programs. Now, it'll want you to say, okay, here's our workspace. There's not much there. What I usually do is, once again, I'll tend to select the top. Okay, so looking at the top view, we've got not much there. The moment that we actually start doing our design, we're going to start with a sketch. So this is sort of like saying, okay, this is the top view of what I want to make. So we create a sketch. It says, where do you want it? Do you want it on this plane? Do you want to look at it from the front? Do you want to look at it from the side? I tend to design so that I'm looking at things from the top, and we just click on that. And now it gives us our grid. So each of these little guys here is 1 mil. If I want to do a ring, I go, okay, what's my ring look like from the top? Well, it's pretty much just a circle. Now in here, in the create, we've got a truckload of all of these little guys hiding in here. So these are basic shapes. If I just click on that, there's my circle. I'm just going to say, right, let's make this a 20 millimeter. And let's say that I want it to be 1 mil thick. So I'm going to draw a second circle just out there. So there's the outline of my ring. So it's 20 millimeters side to side in here. And we're just going to change our orientation. So that's all we've got there. So far, so good. We finish our sketch. Now, a ring has 3 dimensions. So we are going to actually pull that up. So we're going to go looking at the front view. So we'll just click like that. And now I'm going to extrude it. So clicking on this little block here, we get a whole new set. and I can just pull that up. Let's say I want it to be a 4mm wide band. So I can just honk that up there. I can be fairly rough with it, or I can be really precise and go, I want it to be exactly 4 mils. That's the good thing about this one is if you want something to be 4.053 millimeters, it'll go sure thing. That's not a problem. It also gives you other little bunches of ideas into here. It can say we just want it to go one way. It also gives you the option to do two sides. So we could actually do through this. Keep in mind that this is our tabletop, or we can do it symmetrically. So let's go back to just doing one side because you just want it on our tabletop. We've got it all like that. We're creating a new body. In other words, just a new object, one new thing. So there's our one new thing. There we go. There's our ring. And let's say that I want to actually even off that edge. Now, they have actually done an update. And let's go to, yeah. So that's normally what we're looking at. And if we want to put our grid in all dimensions, we can put our layout grid everywhere. So always just go down to the bottom. Now that looks a bit square for a ring. Okay, those edges, they're not going to be really comfortable for anybody. This is where we come up to things like the modify listing just up here. So we're going to put a fillet on that. So we're just going to round off the edge. So we can go, right, let's put, let's say that we want to round off the inside edges because they're that's where our comfort rounding would normally be. So we just select our inside edges and we just give it a bit of a push until we like the look of that. Now it will tell us an actual radius of curvature. You don't even really need that. I mean, it depends on how precise you want to be. If you're just starting, just go until you go, yeah, because this is a pretty good representation of what you're going to get. So you go, yeah, that's not bad. Maybe make it a little less. There we go. And we go, yay. Now we might go, yeah, you know what? I think I want to make a bit of a fillet on the outside of that. So we're going to round that off as well. So we can round that off if we want to. And there's a basic ring. Very simple, very straightforward. Once you actually get going in this, it takes you about 30 seconds. Once we've actually got it like this, we can, this is the big strength of these packages is, oh no, it's 20 mils. We actually need it to be much smaller than that. All we have to do is click on this guy and we can go into modify and it will give us a scale in here. So if I go, oh no, I actually need it to be, oh, instead of 20 mil, I actually need it to be 18.3. In our scale factor here, we can just go 18.3 and we put our divided by 20. Click. And there it is. So now, instead of having a 20 millimeter inside radius, now we've got an 18.3. If you want to know anything about these, well, like what you've actually got, if you click on in here, you'll see that down the bottom here, it actually tells you what the radius of that ring is. So you can check that. So once you have a really fancy design or you have something with writing, which is what we're going to do, have a look at now. This is another thing that's a really good strength of these things is if you are like me and you really suck at engraving, and I mean I am really, really poor. My own handwriting is dreadful. My engraving's dreadful. When people say, oh, I'd really like to have something engraved on the outside, and sometimes carving that into wax can be a real pain in the bottom as well. What we can do is we can actually emboss a design on the outside. Now to do that, we actually just throw Now we're actually going to make a little plane in the front here. So as I said, this is a little bit more advanced. So we're just going to say we're going to march this little guy off to the front. We go, okay. So that's pretty much like a writing surface that we're going to use. And we're going to put that in front of our ring so we know roughly where we're going to put our text. We're going to make another little sketch in the front of what we're going to put on there. We go into our text. It's going to say, yeah, sure, whatever. Now the plane's vanished, so we just click on it again. It wants us to write just a little bit of a box here about roughly how big we want our text. And we go, yep, that's about it. And now it gives us a sample text, which is always, of course, much too large. So we're just going to click on that. And we're down to about 1 mil. Let's say we want it to be about 2 mils. So make it a 2 mil height thing that we've got like that. And let's say we want something on there like, let's go with love. There we go. Let's write love. We can make that a nice thick boundary, and we can also change our font, which is another really nice thing. So rather than it being Arial, we might want it to be in something a bit more like Berlin, something like that, something a bit modern. We could go in something like Broadway or Kandara. A lot of these fonts, keep in mind, are very much like your normal Word document fonts, so a lot of them aren't too wild. You can do something like, there we go, we've got love. There we go, that's lovely, that's fine. We've finished, that's what we want on our ring. And then we go into this little section in here, and it has emboss. So we say, here's the sketch profile we want to throw on there. Faces, we want it to be on the front of this ring. Depth, we only want it to be fairly, not very deep, so we can go 0.4. Let's hopefully let us do that. And now I'll get the plane out of the way. And if I move that around, you can see it's actually carved it into the surface.
Look at that.
Just like that. And of course, you can play around with exactly where the positioning is and stuff like that. In a similar way, you can also put things on the inside. So you can put your hallmark on the inside, and you can put it to any depth you want. Now, that's particularly good if you're an enameler, because this means that you can make it deep enough for you to inlay some enamel. And that's something which I have actually done in the past. So I will show you. We'll go back to that one, and I'll show you my Facebook page. Okay, now this was pretty much a pendant. I just drew out the design, I raised it, and then I just filled in the cells with enamel. These were done the same way. You just do the flat design, you raise it just like I showed you extruding the ring, and then you inlay your enamel. So rather than using cloisonné wires, you can use this method, and you can be very precise as to how thick you make each of your sections. If you want each of these little sections in here to be only 0.5 of a mil, you can make them 0.5 of a mil, or you can make them 1 mil, or you can make them 5 mils. You can make all of these changes fairly easily, and that's another really good strength of this. If you want to give the client an idea of what it actually looks like, or you just want to see, oh, I wonder if that's going to look like, you can go into something here which is just called render. Now it allows you to put like a different background on it. Let's say that we actually want it on a white background or something like that. Play around with all of that. Go apply. There we go. Okay. And we can change what material that we've actually got it out of. So if we go, I would like this to be made out of, what's good? We could go down to something like sterling silver, or we could go into gold, or we could go into shiny brass. We can go over onto here, and close, and that doesn't look too bad. We go, oh yeah, that's okay. And then we go into this, which is in Canvas Render. And what it will do is then generate how light would actually hit the surface of the object. And that tells you roughly what it would look like on a nice white background. So like that. And as we move it around, you can also do a screen capture. What you can also do from here, apart from seeing how that actually looks, you can also drop a background into it. So they give you a bunch of backgrounds. You can put in different designs. So that all works out pretty well. You can also do quite complicated designs using this package. For example, this is a strap that I did. So there you go. Sterling silver strap charm, Stratocaster, and all of this was done just by using different sketches and different layers. Down the bottom here, you'll see this little timeline. Now, what that does is it keeps a track of all of your steps. So if you actually go all the way back to here, and then let it show all of the sketches, which it's not willing to do, it'll show you what I started with.
So you created that whole thing from scratch?
I did. Wow. And it took half an hour. And then you can go through to all sorts of, that's the little keyring that I put it on. So it shows me all these little bits and pieces, shows you all that sort of stuff. And if you just want to get rid of the sketching, it just shows you the outline of what you've got. So it's really a very powerful package. What you then do, once you've actually got your design the way you like it, is, okay, let's say that I wanted this love ring printed up on my 3D printer. I'd have to export it just like I would with anything else. So we're going to our export. We're going to call this demo ring. How's that for something really cool? Now here it really wants to save into its proprietary sort of files. We just go down through here as to whatever we want. If we want an OBJ, if we want it as an STL, that's the one we want. It says it requires translation. Oh, it's saying, oh, you got to save it first. So let's save it. There we go. So we're going to save it as our demo ring. Demo ring 4. I'm bound not to have one of those. So it's going to make sure you save it first before you export it, which isn't such a big thing. There we go. And it says it's version 1, STL, and it gives you options as to where it saves it on your machine. So if you want to save it down on your D drive or you want to save it into your iCloud, let's say you want to put it into your CAD files, we just save it in there, and now it's going to export it. So it'll give you this little pop-up in through here, which can be a bit of a pain in the bottom more than anything else, and it will go through the internet to actually change the STL.
How big a file are they, Carnie?
Pardon? How
big a file size are they?
They don't tend to be overly large. Some of them can be just a few hundred K. Generally, they're usually in megs, but they're not massive. No. They can be massive if you start building really complicated shapes. The really big ones come once you start to do the more organic shapes, like through Mudbox, which I'm going to be showing you. So here's our demo ring. It's uploading. It'll usually give me a heads up once that's actually gone in. In the meantime, what I can do is show you, once you've got your STL file, what you can do with it. And we're not going to be rude there. So let's go back into my screen and let's go, for want of a better thing, we can go into Palloys. Simply because they have an online system whereby you can just upload a CAD file and they'll give you a quote. But you can also go to places like, well, in fact, every foundry these days. This is ChemGold's site. They'll tell you where to actually send your file.
We've just got a grey screen at the minute, Carnie.
Oh, sorry. And let's go into that. Sorry about that, everyone. So this is the ChemGold one, hopefully, that we're looking at.
We are, yeah.
Excellent. So this is just showing you how they do their printing. They've got a white wax which they're using, which comes out on their 3D printer, which comes out of a vat. So it's actually, this is actually right side up. It's actually normally printed out upside down, and it's pulled out of the resin. Once it's actually in this form, then it's just sprued onto a casting tray like anything else. But all you have to do if you're sending things to places like ChemGold or Peter W. Beck, is they will usually give you an email address. We go, hi, here's my STL file. Could you print this for me? And could you then cast it in 14 karat yellow gold? And they'll usually come back to it with a general quote for you. Or if you want to get an idea, you can upload it here. Let me just see how my little upload's going. No, it's still going. It's still being revolting. Okay, so let's say I'm going to upload something else which I've already done. It'll give me a space to do that. So we click on there. Let's say I'm going to send that Stratocaster. So let's try one of these. So I've got a little atom pendant, which I've done previously. So it's a little tiny wee atom. So I just want it to be going to raw cast. I say it's a pendant. They have all these other bits. It doesn't actually have any other bits. So it's every foundry has its own navigation system. Let's say I want this to be done in 10 karat yellow gold. I only want one of them. And then I can go down here, calculate the live price, and they'll tell me just how much it's going to cost to actually print that out and then to actually pay for. So the actual production price at the moment is $16.01, which includes your printing out and your casting, and that's your actual alloy. So $74.14, you may go, yeah, that's fine. You hit submit, and then they ask you for your credit card details or somebody else's credit card details, which is even better, I think. That would be lovely. All foundries now do it. So pick one that you like the look of, or who you like dealing with, and they can sort that out for you. Alternatively, if you have your own 3D printer, you can get a wax resin, such as the one with the Flashforge Hunter, which I know AJS sells, and they also sell the wax resin. And you print it out and you send your wax, which has been printed out. Now I'll show you a little wax here. This is one that I printed out. See this little guy here? That was a printout out of wax, and that's what I got from my printer. And then once I sent that off to, I think I sent that one off to Peter W. Beck, it came back in sterling silver, and then I just cleaned it up. And that's it on the client. Yeah, and so that's it. I just put it onto a Pandora slider, which I also designed using CAD, and gave it over to the client. So it's really a very useful thing. Another thing you can also do is go to places like Shapeways, and it's going to say, Nisha, you're probably not looking at that screen. You've got a Shapeways screen, hopefully?
We do. Yep,
we do. Okay, so if we want to actually print something, and we can say, oh, here's my file. I can actually look inside. I actually made up a little shop. So sometimes you can actually just, once it's got everything, so pick all 3D, there I am. I had a client who really wanted a rocket letter opener made for her son who graduated in engineering, but we had a really short timeline. So we only had like 3 weeks to get it to her. She's in the United States in Texas and wanted it made and delivered in that period of time. Went, it's going to take about a month at the moment with the deliveries. So what I did was I uploaded the letter opener. And then we can go in here. So she clicked on this. She selected what material she wanted. Let's see if it's going to let us move that around. It may not. And they printed off, they cast it, they finished it and polished it, and sent it to her in Texas. Because they're in the United States, it was only local mail.
Wow.
So she could actually see this. So that's another really big advantage of using these. Now, back to all the different programs that we can use. Another one that I want to show you apart from Fusion is if you want to do something more organic. So let's go into, now we should have a great big ball of clay hiding in front of us. So we've got that.
We do.
Do have a big ball of clay. Okay, this is Mudbox. Once again, another Autodesk. I tend to use a lot of the Autodesk ones simply because, as I mentioned before, free to educators and hobbyists, which is really, really good. And even if you don't qualify, it's still a buttload cheaper than things like Rhino Gold, Matrix, and all of those sorts of professional jewelry ones, because they really, they really like to gouge you. And there's also so many limitations in a lot of their designs. Now, here we've just got a ball of clay. If we want to make something just a little bit different, we've got this. Now, this is treated more like a sculpture. So we go, oh, okay, we've got a little bit of, this little thing here allows us to have symmetry. So if we want to keep our design symmetrical, if I want to say, let's say I want to sculpt into this a little bit. So I'm going to make like a little lump on the surface. Like
Excuse me, Carnie, I'll just interrupt for a second. Sarah wants to know if this will be available later, and yes, Sarah, it will be either on Facebook or on the AJS website. Okay,
absolutely.
Back to you, Carnie.
Now, so if I want to make a little nose, let's put a little nose here, maybe define a little bit like that. So it's just using this sort of sculpt. If I hit, usually move that around a little bit. Now, if I hit Control Sculpt at the same time, it allows me to put like a little dent in there. So there we go, I've got a couple of little eyes. So nothing very complicated at the moment. And let's say I want to put down like a little mouth. This controls the size. So we can make it like really quite a narrow little thing. So we can put a little mouth or something like that in there. At least we will once it gets its act together. And we can just, that's another good thing, is we can always just hit Control Z, get rid of things. If we want to smooth things down, we can just go into our smooth button, or we can just continue to do our little sculpty thing. There we go. Whee! And so I don't like that little mouse, so that's not terribly, that's not my best work to say the least. So we can do things like that. If we want to refine it a little bit, which obviously we would need to, we can use little scrape buttons, and we can just scrape that just back a little bit through there, which is not overly, let's make that a bit bigger. Let's increase the strength. So these are more organic sort of packages. If we actually want to, say, put a couple of eyeballs in there, or wax, we could use wax. Let's give the impression of eyes. This doesn't give us a lot of detail, what I'm doing here. So what we can do is we hit divide a few times and it gives us a little bit more resolution. These are a little bit harder to drive because they do take a lot more practice. You can imprint designs on things. So you can take, say, a little stamp and it'll put texture on it. So texture can be added. I mean, usually you've got an entire farm of little texture and paint tools that you can draw on. So there's all these different stamps. So you can make like a little stamp like that over the top. And we can do all sorts of little revolting things like that. I know that looks less than attractive. Mostly I'm just trying to show you how the monster works. But in Mudbox, we'll just go back to, going back into this, back in here. Now, this design was made using Mudbox. So this little dog was made simply by pulling and pushing over clay. So that's another way that you can work. So if you've got a more organic style, then you can go into things like Mudbox. Another one that you can use is Zbrush. And Zbrush is also a very organic design and also free to non-commercial users.
So does the dog, when you did the dog, did that include the ring there as well? Or?
Yep, absolutely. So what you can also do is swap between programs. So what I did was I sculpted this in Mudbox. I picked up the file, I dropped it into Fusion 360, which allows a great deal of precision, which was the one that I made the ring with the embossing on, and then just added the jump ring.
Okay.
So you can mix and match between all of these. Once it's an STL file or an OBJ, have a look at their import preferences. So for example, Mudbox really prefers to have things imported as OBJs. Things like Fusion doesn't really care. Tinkercad will use whatever you want to throw at it. It's pretty bulletproof. And it's just a matter of getting to know each of them. Now, if you want to know about a whole bunch of other little, you can just programs. Are you looking at a Google search box there?
Yes, thanks.
Excellent. So if I just go free 3D modeling software, something like that, that'll give you a whole list of 10 best free 3D modeling software for beginners. And it gives you lists like Mesh Mixer, Sculpt GL, Zbrush Core Mini, Sketchup Free, Wings 3D. There's a whole stack of them out there. What you'll end up doing is finding a couple which you really, really like and sticking with those. Blender is extraordinarily powerful. It is free. It can keep in mind a lot of these things like Blender can actually, you can make an animated thing out of it. So it's really good if you're an animator or if you're a professional modeler or you're an artist. So a lot of art is done by developing a 3D model and then putting a background and then putting light on it and photographing the screen, so to speak. So it's got a whole bunch of stuff you'll never use. They can be really quite complicated to get the hang of, and you're only using about 5% of what its actual functionality is. So not for young players, this one. For getting started, if you're just going to do nice, flat, pretty simple designs, just using letters and numbers or really basic geometric shapes, Tinkercad's a good one to start with. SketchUp is also fairly good. Fusion 360 is probably my preferred one, simply because it does allow such a great deal of precision and it's fairly easy to pick up what it's doing. But you may decide going through all of these that you want to use one of these others. And it's all down to personal style or personal preference. Some people don't like to be constrained. Some people would prefer to have something which is a lot more freewheeling. So things like Blender, Mudbox, Zbrush are definitely more for you. If you would prefer to do something, there we go. We've actually got our thing ready to go. If you would prefer to do something more precise, then you can use things like Fusion 360. Huge strength of Fusion 360 is that you can do all your designs exactly to the scale that you want them, easily able to change the size of something, and at any time you can change, once you've actually got your little list down here of things that you've been doing, you can modify it at any stage. If I wanted to do something really fast, let's say that I wanted to make a very quick signet ring, there you go, a quick signet ring, you never can tell. So you can go out, you can do all these little designs. There we go, there's our basic ring. We're happy with that. We can then draw some lines. So let's say that I'm going to have a flat surface on the top. So there's our flat surface. And we can come down to there. This is a very helpful little program because it will also say, hey, this is the point which is opposite the one that you wanted. So we can start with that. We can then go, oh yeah, that's pretty much what we want. We're pretty happy with that sort of a design. That's all good. And we're out of that. Now what I can do is I may decide I actually want to modify that a bit more. So you just go back and edit it. If I want to rotate this, and this is often the easiest way to actually make a really quick and easy design, you only want half of it. So you just go through, delete the bits you don't want. It'll give you a lot of dialogue in through here, a lot of constraint stuff. You may decide you want to just leave that in, leave the sketch in. It now has divided everything in half, which is nice. We can use that later on. And now we can revolve the entire thing. And around this axis. And go back into our shading. You can tell that they've reset everything because now it's changed all our modes. That doesn't look much like a ring at this stage. We just go, oh, that looks a bit weird. If we go back into our sketch, what we can then do, once we've got our little outline in through there, is I can extrude a hole straight through the middle of it. We're going to go in both directions. Let's go, right, do a cut. There we go. Wow. And we can, yeah, and now we can neaten up those edges. We can. There are other things you can do also to hollow in here, which I don't really quite have that much time. It's just a matter of changing what we've got in here. If we decide we don't want that chunky on the sides, we can go, yeah, that's a bit, I don't like that profile that much. What you can do once again is you can change it by doing sketch on the side. So let's move it around. I'm going to want it, what side would I be looking at? I'm going to look at that side. Move that forward. Over like that. So this is where my new sketch is going to go. Go, okay. I'm going to make a new profile. I want it to be on this plane. And now let's say I go, oh, you know, I really want, I want this little line through here. That's great. That's where I want that. But then from there, hit escape. Then from there, let's say that I want to make a nice little arc shape. So it's actually going to come up the side. So like there, I want it to go up to, say, about there. And click and go, sure, that looks pretty much the way that I want that to be cut out. I might move that over just a little bit. So just so it might match up over there just a little bit more, like that. We like the look of that. We want to mirror that to either side. So it says I want that and that. It says what axis. I want it to be go through there. All happy. And then we finish our sketch. And we can cut through it by splitting our body. We want to split that. Here's our tools. So I'm going very quickly through here just to show you what it's capable of. Extend the splitting tools. It doesn't seem to have done and everything, but if we look at the bodies, we'll see it's actually split the body up. So we look at the bits, we don't want that bit. So we're looking at it from the right-hand side. We go, yep, that's the bit I don't want. That can go. So we remove it. We go to that bit. Oh, I don't want that bit either. Remove. Now that's the side of our ring. And that's what it looks like as we go around it. We can neaten that up. And then once we actually get to the top, let's say that I actually want to put someone's initials on the top. We can, once again, sketch going on the top surface, put in our text. I want it to go somewhere in here. Let's say about there. Ooh, it likes to be locked in position. There we go. And let's say I want just KB. There we go. I can make that a little bit bigger. So there's our 3. I want to center it. I want to center it in the bottom as well. We go, okay, all happy, finish that. And now I'm going to embed it. Take that, drop it down by, say, 0.4. Now it's negative because it's going down. I'm having one of those days. Fingers aren't working. There we go. And we've cut into that. Take our sketch out. Might be a little hard to see it, but it has actually been cut. Let's see. Why is it being revolting? You can do this. Let's try editing that feature. Ah, that's why, because I picked the wrong profile. Aha. Let's see. Let's see where it's taken. Ooh, where's my sketch gone? Now, sometimes this happens that you end up editing the wrong thing. The good thing is you can always just rewind everything. Just get out of that. Yep, I must have taken it out, as you do. So go into the sketch, go to the top. Yep. Anyway, this happens quite a lot. And if you want to, you can just delete and delete, and then just go through and do it again anyway, which is usually pretty quick. Tell it to do it on there, do our text. Let's just put just a K on there, hey? There we go. Just put in a big K or small K. Small K, why not? This is what happens when your fingers don't work. Let's just put a K on there. K for Carnie. There we go. Make sure it's happy. It seems happy. It vanishes because sketches do that. So it'll sometimes turn these off because it's thinking about something. So all you do is just go and just turn the little eyeball back on and just say, no, I want that back again. How dare you? And drop that through. Let's make it to about there anyway. Yeah, that's a little better. Take all the sketches out of the way. And there's our signet ring.
Beautiful.
And, oh, dead easy. And if by adjusting this profile back here, let's say you wanted to hollow it out more, it's simply a matter of going in there and just putting a section in through here, and it'll drop it through. Alternatively, you can also drill a hole in there. You could put in, you could cut halfway through it. You can also check on what it's doing in its geometry by looking at the inspection. So there's something called section analysis, which allows you to look through at the cross sections. You can go, yeah, that's pretty good. It'll tell you if you've got problems. So if I'd actually extruded this all the way through and wasn't aware, or it was really thin, I could just go, oh, that's not going to go well when it goes into the investment medium. So you can do all those sorts of things. And you can
Carnie, is it possible, does the program have the ability to tell you how much that would weigh in a certain metal or not?
The easiest way is to import it into something like Palois.
Okay.
Another thing that you can do is if you take, let's say that we've got our demo ring, which finished in here, what we can do is go to another program, which is a bit more revolting. A lot of different 3D viewers will actually allow you to work out the geometry. But yeah, just importing it into something like the Palois thing, it'll calculate the volume for you.
So Carnie, thank you so much for your presentation this morning. Really appreciate it. And we've got some lovely comments. People saying, wow, this is super cool, stunning. So that's really appreciate that from our viewers.
Oh,
and
good.
We'll look forward to having you back sometime again real soon.
Okay, thanks very much. Everyone have a great day.
Thanks, Carnie.
Bye.
Bye-bye.